Okay, so this is one of those something and nothing jobs. I've got these hooks to make. I think they are for holding on grading screens for some sort of a brick crusher or a grading machine of some sort for doing soil or rubble. I'm not sure. Anyway, I've got 24 of them to make. They've got a 16mm studding connector welded on the back of them, and it's quarter plate. So let's crack on. We've got the connectors, a box of them, special order, 24 of them. Unfortunately they're cadmium plated, so we're going to have to grind all that off, because that is nasty stuff for welding with. And I've pulled out a few bits and pieces out of the rack, because I'm going to do it in the fly press, see if I can bend them in there. So I've pulled out a few bits that I can probably use that as the base plate. Might use that as the bit that goes in the fly press. Some of these bits used for making up the base tool, and that I think is going to be the right size for pushing into it. So let's see what else we've got. We've got the material that I'm going to use, 60 by 6, so it's about 2.5 by quarter. This is actually offcuts from the beacon that I made. Just happen to have these 3 lengths left, which is just going to be enough, I think. So we can rock and roll. So let's turn our attention to making up the press tool. So this bit of round, I think it's 16mm round, just nicely fits in the bottom of there, if you can see. So that's what I'm going to use for the base of it, base of the press tool. This bit goes into the fly press, and as you can see it's touching the sides of the V, so I've got to have to take the edges off so that it can actually fit in there. So I'm just going to do that now. Good old tool this is. See if that's going to do the job. Yep, I think that'll do it. It's got enough clearance now that hopefully I can push the V over, because it's bound to spring back a little bit. So we've got enough clearance on this tool now. Can't really see there, but trust me, there is. So it can go over and then spring back. So let's cut myself a little piece of the 16mm round. I'm going to bolt that saw down one of these days, stop it rocking. Right, I've just put a little V in the bottom of that inch round, just to locate it a bit better. I'm just tacking it. It's the only trouble with using a magnet. If it's too close to your weld, it splatters all over the place. Magnets are good in some respects, but sometimes they're a pain in the arse. Right, let's see if I can get that in a position that it's going to be comfortable for me to weld and you can see it. I don't normally like filming welding. I feel it can't do the sensor and the camera much good, but I think at the moment, hey ho, the camera's getting on a bit. I really ought to start thinking about a new one, so if it knackers it, I'll know that it does knacker the cameras, and I shall get a new one and won't do it again. Anyway, there's a nice decent bit of weld on there. Don't think that's going anywhere. I'm just going to put a little bit on each end. I did think about putting a little bit of a brace in from the inch down to it, but I don't think it'll need it. I think it's short enough that I can get away without a brace. So that's that bit. Bit number 1. So I just cleaned it up a bit, and that, now you can see that there's a nice little bit of clearance either side, so I can push that over if necessary, because it will spring back. So that's the first part done. I'm going to use this, I think that's 40x6 flat for the base of the press tool. So we'll cut a couple of bits of that. Cracking tool, this saw. Blade's getting a bit blunt now. I have to send some away to be sharpened. Right, so I'm just going to tack this at each end, basically, so if I want to I can sort of knock it up or back, either way, just to get the angle right. This is going to be difficult to work out because of that studding connector on there. I can't actually set it down level to get the angle right. It's really in the way. So, short of cutting it off, let's look at it from another angle. Got a little bit of lightweight flat there. I think it's about 16 gauge, maybe a bit more. Just going to pull that round till I get the shape. Give it a bit of a tap. Get my grips off. I'm just going to close that up a bit more. That's it. There you go. And then I'm going to use that as my reference for putting the front piece on. And it's all a bit hit and miss. But at the end of the day, I don't want to spend a lot of time or money or effort in making a jig. I know I've got 24 to do, but you know, once I've done this 24, this jig's probably going in the scrap, so I don't really want to spend too much time or effort doing it. I can't remember what I'm trying to explain there. But again, I'm just going to tack that at each corner. I don't know if you can see from that little piece, also from the actual bracket, they're offset, or it's an offset bend. I've got it about right, so I'm just going to run some beads in. So yeah, the bend isn't in the middle of the plate, it's offset. One arm or stalk or side is longer than the other. Not by a lot, only by about 5 mil, or quarter, less than quarter probably. So I'm going to have to take that into account when I bend them. Fly press is a fantastic tool, sort of limited to your own imagination of what jigs you can make for it. And these sort of things, these little press tools, are so handy for little jobs. Right, I think I'm going to run a bead down each side. So it's got to be fairly strong. I was thinking about doing this hot, putting them in the forge and then sticking them in the fly press tool. But I think I can probably do it cold. So I want to make it reasonably strong. If I was doing it hot, I probably wouldn't need any more than literally this. But as I'm going to have a go at doing them cold, I'm going to need to put a couple of braces on it. Alright, so that's got either side of that. Quick brush up. Check that it's half decent weld. Can't really see that, but that'll do for me. Nothing fantastic. But I was just indicating there that I'm going to put the, yeah, there, something like that up there. A bit of this, again, this is, I think this is 40x6 bright. Just happen to have all these scraps lying about. I might as well make use of them. Beats a hacksaw, that's for sure. That tool. Right, I'm just going to, again, put a little tack on each end and each corner. Do the same the other side. And that, if I weld that up thoroughly, that should brace it up nicely. Just long enough to do this 24 cold. There we go, very simple. Just wax and weld down there. Got a knobble on the end of me rod. It's funny, when I was welding that, it seemed to go ever so quickly. That little short weld, sort of 3 inches or whatever it is. It takes a long while when you're watching it. This video will go out just after, about a week after the last of the horse head videos, which I've had quite a good response about. That was one of the better or more interesting jobs that I've had. Unfortunately, these are the more common jobs that I get, the more day-to-day work. Well, they're still quite interesting, you know, you've got to think up how you're going to do them, make the jig and do them, and try and do it all at a reasonable price. So it can be tricky. That's why I say you don't want to spend too much time and effort on some of these jigs. So I probably won't chuck this away for a while, but eventually this will just get in, you know, in the scrap, because what's the chances of me wanting to make another thing that the same angle? Very slim. Right, I've cooled that down because that was really hot. So that's how it's all going to go together. But now I've just got to figure out a way of holding it down in the press. So what I'm going to do, just going to put some little bits of angle iron. Just a couple of bits of angle iron. Very short, because I've got these bolts that go in the grooves on the fly press. So I'm just going to stick these through, because I want to get this jig exactly in the right place. I don't want it to move, because I've got the 24 to do. I don't want to keep mucking about with it moving. So I need to get it bolted down fairly solid. There we go, just tack them on. Unfortunately, the plate isn't long enough on its own, otherwise I would have just drilled some big holes in each end. But as this is just a bit of scrap, again, this came off the beacon. This was the bottom ring. It's just the offcuts from the bottom ring. I knew they'd come in handy, but they're just not quite long enough to drill holes in to hold it down. So that's why I'm just going to put these little bits of angle on. And this is heavy angle. It's again, I think this is inch by quarter. So it's a fairly heavy angle. I'm just going to eyeball these bits of angle. Yeah, near enough's good enough in this firm. It's pretty cold in here again today. We've had some really weird weather just lately. It's been, one minute it's been freezing cold and icy. The next minute it's just wet, 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 and damp. It's that dampness that really gets into you. And I don't know how many of you appreciate my workshop is open fronted. I don't have a doorway, I have a roller shutter. So when I'm working, the whole of the front of the shop is open to the elements. I really would love to get a shop with a door that I can shut and heat. Right, there you go. So that's going to hold it down. Here we go, installed. So I've literally just centred it up in the fly press so that the top tool comes down bang in the middle. Next thing I need to do is put some sort of stop on it, really, either front or back, so that when I push the job in, it goes in at the same spot every time, and I bend it up, Bob's your uncle. So I should have done that before I stuck it in there, bolted it down, but I'm sure I can do it quite easily afterwards. So first of all, let's cut off all the bits so we can figure out where it's got to go. And you've got 24 of these. I'm hoping I've just about got enough of this material. It's good really, because I was going to have to order a full length of this and really need 6.5 metres or whatever it comes in. It all just adds to the cost, so this, at least I can cost this out almost by the inch. Alright, so that's the 24. Give them a bit of a clean up. Take all those burrs off and the sharp edges. Run the old flat disc across them. I do like the facility to be able to speed things up. It does slightly lessen the boredom factor whilst you're watching, but you can still see what I'm up to. Done. So now we've got to work out exactly where we've got to put the bend, which, as I say, is not in the middle. I worked out it's 45mm in from one end, and the piece is actually, now then, how long's the piece? 85, I think. Was it 85? Yeah, I think it was 85. So it is literally 5mm difference. So I'm going to work out where the centre is and just drop this tool down onto it. I can't really see. It would have been better if I'd put this tool in the other way around, sideways, So I'm just pulling it across so I can see the scribe mark in the centre of that bar. Not only do I want to get in the centre, but I want to get it square. So now I'm going to put this, I think I'll put it up the back there. It's going to be much easier than at the front here for getting the stuff in and out. So I'm just going to find a piece of something suitable to go in there. I found a bit of the same stuff. We've got a bit of an offcut of the actual material we're using to make the V's. I think that would be pretty much perfect in there. Again, I'm just going to tack it on the corners. But then I'm going to put a bit more than a tack, a bit of a decent weld on there, just so I can slide that up to it. So let's give it a go. This fly press, oh, I don't know how many years I've had this. It had been sitting in a field for, oh, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 years. And it was seized absolutely solid. Oh, you can see what I'm doing there. I'm just oiling the lips of the bottom tool. It just makes life much easier. The bit you're bending will slide better. It won't dig in. I did actually take the corners off the inside of the press tool with the flap disc, just rounded them off slightly, just so they're not so sharp, because you can find that your material binds on those corners, and a little bit of oil really makes all the difference. There you go, you can't see it from there, but I'll do you a close up in a minute. I'll let you have a proper look. Right, there you go, you can see from there just that extra length on one side. Let's see if I can show you how close it is. Don't know if you'll be able to see from there, but that is pretty much spot on. Bloody hell, a blind man would be pleased to see that. So let's crack on and do the rest of them. Let's say this fly press, Sweeney block, it's not block side, it's block something or other, from Birmingham. God knows how old it is. Don't see many of these complete arch type fly presses. But I say it was in a field for God knows how many years, completely seized up. I bought it for a tenner. I brought it home. I poured diesel over it for couple of weeks, just kept pouring a little bit of diesel over it and then belting the life out of it with a sledgehammer. Eventually it freed up, and it's a cracking tool. As you can see, it's knocking these out a treat. Different angle. Just up to the stop, make sure it's level, and give it some beans. This didn't do my shoulder much, cop. I don't know how many of you know I'm having real trouble with my shoulder at the moment. So if it's not one thing, it's another. I've just got over, a couple of years ago, my wrist. Now it's my shoulder. I'm under the doctor for that. Don't actually know what is wrong with it yet. All I heard from the x-ray was there's a bit of wear and tear in the joint. No shit, Sherlock. So we'll see. Eventually they'll sort something out. So there you go, got them all done. Now we've got to grind the coating off of the connectors. So I'm just going to do it on the big old grinder. I'm just going to take the bottom, part of the bottom and part of one of the sides, basically the bits I'm going to weld to. Get as much of it off as I can without grinding too much of the actual socket away. Because this cadmium, it's evil stuff. I don't mind galvanised, weld up galvanised all day without a mask, but this stuff, nasty. Great tool this. Again, something else. I don't think I've bought many things brand new. This was another cheapo off the internet, but it's been a wonderful tool. Right, so assembly. I think this is how I'm going to do it. Stick it in the vise and then clamp the socket onto it. I'm just going to eyeball it. I've got a pretty good eye for centre level, so I don't think they're particularly critical. It's not a job that requires a micrometer. I think they're for going on a machine that I'm not sure if it's a concrete crusher or a concrete grader or a gravel grader or a soil grader, what it is. It's some sort of big, huge bit of equipment that gets towed around the country and dropped onto sites, and they crush or grade or do something or other. Not really sure, but I'm sure if I needed to know I would have been told. I suppose if I was nosy enough I'd just ask. Sometimes you really need to know, because you need to know what materials to use. You know, I thought perhaps I might have needed to use a hard material for this, but it wasn't specified. So we're just using mild. And if it had been specified, we would have been using the arc welder with some 7018s. So there you go, that's the first one. Let's crack on and do a few more. I've always got my eye on the clock a little bit. You know, you don't want to spend too much time. But you want to get them right. Look how cramped that workshop is. I really need a bigger shop. I've been on to my landlord, but he can't find me one at the moment. So I've just got to make do. Nice shot of my back. It's amazing when, just noticed it again, when you're actually welding, the welds seem to go really quick. When you're watching someone weld, they take forever. Just knocked a spot of weld off there that shouldn't have been there. And you'll notice I'm wearing my mask for this stuff, although I've ground the majority of the cadmium plating off. There's still going to be some on there, and as I say, I do not like cadmium plating. Right, we're getting there. $24. Done. Right, so the next job. I'm just going to clean out the threads because that welding, it can really tighten up a thread. So I don't want the bloke to have any issues when he's trying to put it all together. So I've just put this in my drill press and turn the speed right down, and I'm just going to run it through them all just to make sure there's no spots of weld got in there or it hasn't tightened up, because it sometimes sort of makes them go a little bit oval when you weld them. I was going to use my tapping machine, but this 16mm tap wouldn't go in it. It'd only go up to about 1/2 inch, so I had to make do with the drill press. It's got a slow enough speed that I can do it. This actually isn't the slowest, because the slowest was way too slow. I was going to be all day. Right, got them all drilled. There you go. Just one I've cleaned up. Nothing spectacular. Everyday job. And it's what pays the bills, or goes towards it. Just one of those jobs. Random jobs that come in. I can't really see from that side because someone's been belting that side. Don't quite know why they've been belting it, but hey ho. Now I think he'll be pretty pleased with those. They're pretty damn near the same. So there you go. Thanks for watching. Hope I haven't bored you with an ordinary everyday job, but such is life. Hope to see you on the next one. In the meantime, have a good Christmas, a wonderful New Year, and the next one should be out early in the new year.